The first question I tend to ask everyone who joins is, who are you and how did you find yourself sitting here talking with me?
Yes, I'm Johnathan Heppner, and on Twitter I'm Johnny Anect. And what I do is I work for the Research Hub Foundation, and I work as the SciComs director. So science communication director is really the goal here, to communicate our mission, our vision, our scientific product to the scientists themselves, and also to the broader population who can benefit from all the scientific insights that are gained in research. So it's my job really to break this down and convey it to the public in a digestible manner.
I love that. It's definitely something people need because a lot of times when the researchers and academics are talking, everything is just going over everyone's head. And considering the nature of a DeSci or open science, it's important to get as much collaboration and involvement as possible. So I'm really curious, like how long have you been working for Research Hub Foundation?
Oh, I think I officially really started in this role. I started, I think, 1 year and 4 months ago, like 1.5 years ago. And I got involved a little bit earlier, I think in the beginning of that year. So it's like 2 years, but then I was really just like low key helping here and there. I just like joined the Discord and did a few things. But it has been on my radar for a longer time. So I always wanted to really work for Research Hub because to me, the DeSci thought kind of came to me naturally when I learned about Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, wow, they take out the middleman in banking. How about we take out the middleman in scientific consensus and we let this scientist come to a consensus peer-to-peer rather than having a middleman that somehow also has an interest in what they talk about? Why wouldn't they make it out between each other? And I think I learned this in 2017. And since then, it has been on my radar. Eventually, I talked about this idea with some friends and they said, why do you just want to make one journal? It should be like a Reddit of science. I was like, yes, you're right. I was thinking way too small. It needs to be a Reddit of science. So in my first internship that I did at the university, I joined, like, I was like scientific decentralized journal and blockchain journal and whatever, until I finally found a few companies. And in that search, I ended up in one company and I managed their Twitter account. And when I managed their Twitter account, I wanted to know all the competitors. And I learned about all the competitors. I learned about PeterDAO, I learned about Molecule, I learned about Research Hub, and I looked at Research Hub's product and I was like, wait, this looks like a Reddit for science. I want to work for them. And I was kind of already a bit unsatisfied with the company that I was then with at the time. And I really wanted to work for Research Hub. And that kind of led me down. Like you could say since then, I have been working towards working for Research Hub, even though I didn't actually work for them literally. I was kind of hoping that eventually I could get into this position where I can help this company. And now I'm there and I'm super happy about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You didn't quite know where the universe was taking you, but you just had faith that if you continued doing what interested you and what you thought brought the most value, you'd end up here. I think it's cool that most people who aren't developers in crypto or blockchain have a similar story where it's like you just got really interested in the project, then you started helping on their social media, and then next thing you know, you kept diving deeper and deeper, and now you have landed yourself an official role here at Research Hub Foundation. Are they, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but are they paying you enough in which you got to quit your other career or your other job, or are you working two different jobs at the same time?
No, they pay me enough. I am happily satisfied with my wage, but it's not like I don't want to participate. I still want to continue my scientific career because in my view, the best case scenario, a Research Hub actually employs a lot of scientists, so that it's the scientists themselves running the platform that they use to govern their own consensus. So I don't want to give up my scientific inclinations. It's natural to me. I can't just become only a manager and a social media guy. I need to also know what I'm doing and I need to study. And so I still maintain one foot in my scientific practice. And that to me is like, I'm a philosopher of psychology. So I do coaching there and I basically work with one-on-one with clients. It's not therapeutic, it's not clinical, but I still employ a lot of the psychological things that I have learned. And I need to do that. I need to have this yeah, like start. It's a way to advance my knowledge in psychology.
Yeah, you got to keep the knife sharp, so to say. I feel like we could have an entire episode or an entire podcast episode specifically on human psychology because it is one of the most fascinating topics out there, in my opinion. I'm a minor in psychology, so it's always just been something
Yeah.
that interests me or intrigues me. Um, so I have a question as it pertains to what the White House recently passed, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But about a year ago, for anyone who's not watching or not familiar with this and is watching, about a year ago, the United States, the White House passed legislation that says that any funded research that gets published, that it was funded from the United States government, has to be posted into an open source journal or a journal without a paywall on it.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, when I saw that, my immediate thoughts were Decentralized Science Research Hub, Nova Blocks, even
Yeah.
preprints. And I'm curious if you have any insight or what your thoughts are as a man on the inside. Have you seen a large sway in the academic publishing industry towards things like Research Hub because of this?
Yeah, most certainly the open access thought, like the whole open access thing is really, really big in the science community. Every university and every library and every researcher is aware of this. Maybe not every researcher, but at least the people who deal with the publications, and those are like people in the library often, they are really aware of it and they're really pushing to reach this goal to make everything open access. So definitely yes. And what we find is not exactly that people have already picked up on DeSci. And DeSci is still very niche. Like we are growing into this position where we can serve exactly this problem, and we can actually serve exactly these people, the funders who want the research to be open. That's exactly who we can serve. But it's not like they have already caught on to that. So right now, I would say what it really does is that people put way more emphasis on innovative journals that use open access and that use open forms of communication around the paper. Like, for example, eLife is one example that is more in the traditional space, but already very innovative in the way that they do things. They actually aggregate all the information on the paper, like all the other things that are being said about the paper and the peer reviews. And so you can find not only the paper, but you can find it contextualized against what the peers really believe about this research. And so there's the one thing, and the other thing is preprints. So preprints right now, they don't have a really deep market penetration. It's like maybe 10% of all papers get preprinted, but that's a lot. That's of course a lot of papers. I can't count them. And I'm thinking here only about the biomedical space. So it's like, this was what I learned from the founders of bioRxiv, which is the biggest preprint server in that domain. They say, okay, 10% of all biological papers, they go through our preprint procedure before they go to the journal. So preprints, of course, are basically a way to just get out your information immediately before it goes through peer review. Because one of the problems with this publishing space really is that for some reason, the publishers don't publish your paper until it is peer reviewed, and that takes really long time. And then in this process, they take your rights away. So the internet, of course, allows us to do this much quicker. You can basically, when you think it's ready, you can post it online, and this is what people are doing now. And it kind of goes back to a long tradition in the more technically deep, or not, let's not say deep, but technically apt disciplines. So mathematics, computer science, and physics, they have started with this preprint behavior on arXiv, because I think they also are the people who know how to program a database and make that possible, because it's part of their discipline that they need to know the computer because they're calculating so much. And now other disciplines are catching on to this, and it's really a trend and this is really what it does not only come down to the government, but really the open access movement goes back to maybe 2000 and 2003. There were some declarations. I don't know all of them, but it's like Budapest Declaration, Berlin Declaration. There was really like a movement within the academia that really pushed for open access. So it's becoming now you're seeing the consequences, so to say. They have lobbied government so to enforce these things. And so it took like 20 years for this to become common sense. But the arguments are so sensitive, they make so much sense that this actually impacts what the law does and what the funders do. And for us, we are just in the perfect position to like serve these needs even better than what is traditionally happening. Like one more thing that I would like to say about it is, yes, we see this open access movement, but one thing that I'm seeing is that the big publishers kind of figured out a way to change their model to adapt to open access. And now they're just like charging people to get the paper into the journal. Previously, they would charge the reader. So the libraries had to pay a lot of money to get all these journals subscribed. And the libraries were running out of money, so they wanted open access. But what they have done is they just let the universities and the funders pay to get the paper into the journal. And then they raise the price this way, and they again capture the same market financially. And I think what we need to do in Research Hub and in all of decentralized science is really to distribute this more to the individual scientists rather than having the big publisher on the top make all of the money and the other people, that the scientists pay them to get their product out. We want to be able to get the people money if they make good science, so that they can use that to make even more good science. And there's a different kind of incentive system where if you make good science, you are also not only reputationally rewarded, which you still will be, but also financially rewarded, and ideally in research coin that you can invest in new science. And that's what I would like to see, to empower the individual authors really. And we are really, the whole DeSci space is building these technologies that make that possible.
Yeah, in a second, I want to dive a little bit deeper into what you were saying there and talk about the new dual incentive model with Research Hub trying to fight Goodhart's law and everything. But you talked about how profitable it is for these academic journals to be posting the peer-reviewed articles and everything. In 2023, so just last year, they made in revenue like $19 billion, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of these, they have a profit margin of like 35, 45%, which means they're taking home like half of that money, which is insane because now we're seeing it's not coming from like the broader public trying to view the articles. Like you just said, it's coming from the researchers effectively having to pay to get on these publication sites. And so I imagine that's driving, or at least as they start waking up to it, more so probably the independent researchers than the ones at university. But I imagine it's driving a lot of these researchers to look for alternatives. I'm curious, from your point of view, what are some of the industries that you're seeing come into more like into Research Hub specifically? So like what different disciplinaries in the academic publishing world?
Yeah. So yeah, certainly true that this is they have huge profit margins because they really don't pay the authors pay them, and they don't pay the reviewers. So a lot of people work for them for free, and that the real people with the actual expertise, they work for them for free, and that creates high profit margins because they don't have, they basically pay for the cost of the product that they are producing. They're just in there making money for the. It's more like buying a billboard, It's like, oh, you're in this big reputational spot now. Everybody can see what you're talking about, so you pay for that. And yeah, it's driving people away from that. And what we are seeing is in our current iteration of Research Hub, we have really focused on preprints recently and reviewing preprints. And what we have focused on then was bioarchive. So we focused on biological sciences, biomedical sciences a lot. And we see, I think most of them are neuroscientists, but I need to admit that since I am not really in charge of product or anything like this, my data and knowledge is just when we have meetings and they talk about it, they show me stuff and I see that stuff, but I don't know all the data off the top of my head. So please take this with a grain of salt. And if you see different information, I was wrong, but I'm giving you what I saw, what I remember from the last time. And I think it's mostly biomedical sciences that are really like on top in Research Hub and neuroscience in particular. So
yeah, I appreciate the transparency. That's good. Good not to talk on things that you don't have explicit knowledge in. So thank you for that. I was watching an interview with Patrick Joyce that was posted like 5 or 6 days ago on YouTube. And he was saying that there's like 150 to 200 individuals who are active on a weekly basis, actually contributing to everything. Are you in discussions with any of these individuals? Like, do you get to communicate with them, or is it you're just front facing, going out towards the public and trying to communicate what is happening to the public?
It's certainly not just a one-way street. It depends a little bit on the phase and which I am. If I am, sometimes I'm like, I'm not taking any information in. I'm just working on myself and just like be like, okay, now I need to implement. But I often can go to community calls, not so often in the recent times, but there were times where I was there more. And in the community calls, what you find is that all not every user who is active on the platform also shows up community calls, but the people who care the most actually are there. And they talk about what we should do next, what we can do with the product. They offer their support, and you can really learn from them what they care for. And this is, of course, important also for me, since I'm communicating the vision and the mission of this product and the functionalities. I need to also know what the users care for and what the users talk about to really target issues that people who already use Research Hub care about, because who's already using Research Hub is a good kind of reference point to who else could be using it but might not yet know about it, or might have some whatever reason not to join, and which could be addressed if you maybe address the concern.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to knock down those friction points for people joining. For the non-sciencey audience right now, what are some things that they could do to get involved and actually help contribute to this overall mission with Research Hub?
Well, there are multiple ways in which you can definitely join this mission. On the one hand, you can, of course, also join the community course. That may be already a bit deep, but you could start, because on Research Hub we have this public platform. You can actually start watching, seeing the discussions, upvoting, downvoting, funneling. So you can use your research coin and incentivize certain questions. You could go on like if you're a layperson and you don't know how to do research, or we even saw like people from companies. So there's like a whole company joined Research Hub. It's like, okay, we need somebody to do market research in this area, and put up a proposal, put a bounty on the proposal, and then scientists can go and answer these questions and earn research coin for that. So that's one way in which you can contribute. If you just like use the platform, participate on the platform, maybe your comments will not get the most upvotes, because if you're not an expert, people will not, like the scientists will not put that high up. But if you have something to contribute, if you have a question to contribute, that's always really welcome. And then another thing is, of course, if you hold the token, if you spread the vision, I think this is another really big support to just like grow the base of users, grow the base of people who know about research, grow about Research Hub, and really make the whole thing bigger. If like in some way, because the way that human psychology works is like, if the market cap is bigger, everybody is going to assume it's a bigger thing. And that's going to help, because people want to be part of the biggest thesis. Like in a way, I think it was Jesus who said something like, those who already have, they will be given more, and those who don't have nothing, they will have little, they will even lose that, you know. And I think this is kind of a prediction of how human nature sort of works. It's like we look at at this and we're like, oh, they have a lot, so it must really work. And I think that's one way in which you can really support the mission, is just join, be part of it, and just spread the word and be like, oh, decentralized science is about decentralizing the knowledge-making mechanism of our society. And I think maybe this is something that everybody really does care for, even if they are not yet a scientist. What I really believe this whole scientific thing is about is not just a few people in an ivory tower further the understanding of humankind, and everybody else just follows along and believes what they say. I believe it's really, it comes back to like the point in time which we call the Enlightenment, where basically the people woke up from a dogmatic way of organizing their society, where they would just follow what the church was saying. And then there were some individuals who said, no, now we're going to do this different. We're going to call this the Enlightenment. In German, it's even a different name. I like even better because it's less spiritually tainted. And it's just, we will wake up and think for ourselves. Now we're gonna think things through and we make decisions based on what we think. And I think this is how you can really join this by understanding that we need to continue to do this as a culture. And one way in which we continue to do this is if we allow free thinking, even in our scientific publishing, in our scientific investigations. And then I think in some way we could say that we need a second enlightenment where people now have started blindly believing in science. They take this as an authoritative like standard without knowing what science really is. People are like, oh, the scientists have found. And that is like the dogmatic truth. And it's like, wait, if you are a scientist, you know that there's still a lot of room for debate in even this finding, because they have found this in these conditions with these claims. And maybe if we do the study again, we find different results. So let's at least investigate these claims before we take them to be an absolute truth. And I think that's the most important way to join this movement in general, is to demand that you can see the evidence, is to think along with the scientists and really become scientific as a person yourself. I think that's what the Enlightenment is about. It's like think for yourself mentality. And what we need is not just have a few people do that. We need to, across the board, increase the amount of people who do that. And that will really change the living conditions for everybody around us, not only economically, but also morally. Like, the more we actually think along, the more we will not just buy into hatred and divisions. We are going to see the similarities where they exist. We're going to just really think for ourselves. And I think that's what motivates me. That's why I'm in decentralized science, because I studied the philosophers and I saw that they were really enlightened. And I was like, look, this is what we need to do. And we have this tendency in our culture to separate science from philosophy. And that's not actually correct. That's not what the PhD stands for. The PhD in the PH and PhD stands for philosophy. It's called philosophy doctorate. And if we just focus on technology, then we might get it wrong, because in the old Greek word, if you go to technology, comes from the Greek word techni, which means art. And philosophy is just a law of wisdom. And what we really need is episteme. That's knowledge. But if we just have techni without episteme, then what we end up doing is we just copy an algorithm and we work like a machine without questioning the results and understanding the results. And so that is a danger that has kind of taken hold of our current dominant culture, where we are copy-pasting the scientific method, but we're not actually investigating the truth of the claim itself. We're just copying the result, and it has turned into what some philosophers, they say, it's research and not science. So they say not all research is already science, because if you're just researching, you're measuring a lot of things. But if you don't put them in the context of universal knowledge of philosophy, then they are really just technique. They are just an art. They are not yet knowledge. Deep art, great art, but as somebody educated by these philosophers of history, I still see the value in philosophy and episteme, and I think that is what is thinking for yourself.
I think that I will be clipping that to post all over the place. I think you're preaching to the choir right there. I love that very much so. I think a lot of what happened in society after the Enlightenment years ago is we saw that pendulum in society swing so far in the other direction to just like do as you're told, be a cog in the machine, trust the process, trust the experts, not understanding that like even your doctor, it's called the practice of medicine. It's like that guy's practicing on you. He's trying to learn, and we're trying to develop out these fields, which in the grand scheme of things are a brand new. They're a blip in human history. And so I find a lot of times like thinking outside of the box and asking questions that just aren't being asked in especially the scientific research field and academia, like helps progress the entire field forward dramatically. And having that idea that like you can't ask a question because you don't have a PhD and your opinion doesn't matter, really halts a lot of the progress. I mean, I like giving this example, and I think it's a silly example, but it rings so true for so many people. It's like the idea of spontaneous generation back hundreds of years ago, in which the idea was like life just comes spontaneously, and it came because they put out pieces of meat, and all of a sudden maggots would start growing on it, and they're like, "Oh my God, these maggots just spawned off this piece of meat." It's like, no, a fly came over, laid an egg, and then continued on. But for hundreds of years, people really did just believe in that, and it wasn't until somebody asked a question and created pasteurization from it that we got any of that progression, which led into microbiology. So it's like there's so many different things that just haven't been explored yet, and that even is evidenced by what they're seeing with the James Webb Telescope right now to bring it into modern times, and like looking out to what they thought they would see as the Big Bang, but finding fully formed galaxies as old as our current one, which should have been like little baby infant stars. And so we really, I don't think, know as much as we think we know. And so it's very important that we keep that fresh mind, especially in the industry. And one of the things, bringing it back into Research Hub for a minute, one of the things he said was that people who are not scientists, people like myself who could just go on a platform and try and contribute to the overall mission of bringing back that idea that we were just talking about of like the core of the scientific process, they could go on and earn upvotes and rep points in this new dual incentive model.
Yeah, if you are continuously ask really good questions, for example, if you are there or you break down scientific findings for the public on Research Hub and you get upvotes, that is one way to build your reputation as a scientific expert, as a like, okay, this guy actually asks meaningful questions and they become upvoted. Then you get reputation on the platform because you are part of the scientific process. And ideally, in my mind, ideally, this is how it should be, that the public has access to the real debate that scientists have, and that the public is in interface with the experts. So if somebody continuously asks good questions that lead to good debate, that is a definitely valuable contribution that helps them earn reputation. Also, Research Coin for upvotes, that has been reduced so because we had seen that our first version of this is why we had the update. The first version of our algorithm wasn't fully aligned with what is quality in research. It was basically, we started it off, we did it, it was working, and it did well, it attracted users, it made a fun interactive game on science, but then we grew, we had more users, so we see the systems get stress tested, and we see, okay, wait, now people get way too many coins for non-valuable answers, and we have to do something about it, so we changed the algorithm, and that's kind of the whole thing will never really be stable. Patrick is always stressing this, so like Patrick Joyce, our COO, he's stressing it a lot, how really the benefit is that we are a community of people and we are governing the platform together. So we have these votes on Snapshot where you can actually decide what's going to happen. And of course, the leadership team draws up ideas, makes suggestions, just like in a government. It's not like everybody can, that's inefficient, but we can have plans and vote on these plans. And so the iteration is necessary. And we find that we will probably eventually again change the algorithm to again align it more closely with science as the platform's dynamic change, as the people will go there change, but also science itself keeps changing. So that's a necessary thing that we try to hit a moving target. So we got to change where we're aiming. And ideally, the thing is that we can, as a scientific community, set the standard and set the goals for what we want to reward and what we don't want to reward. And
yeah, I remember a year ago, I did one task on Research Hub, and it was literally just like sign up and create an account. And I got like 4,000 RSC, which is now worth like $1,000. And all I did was just sign up for the account. And so you definitely, as the whole ecosystem grows, the incentive structure has to shift with it. Otherwise, you just run out of tokens. And so
that's another fun dynamic here in the crypto space, where like similar to how the rewards in Bitcoin, they keep halving, and then basically the early adopters get somehow more because they when they join, the value of each coin is much lower, and then it keeps growing as the network's growing. And so it's really fun in a way to be an early adopter and in this world, just like do it for the passion, but then also get the rewards from that. So I find that really interesting about the whole cryptocurrency space.
It is a novel utility behind crypto that I feel like a lot of people view as taboo to talk about, is just the valuation stuff and the price action of things. Are you allowed to talk about the price action, or not the price action, but just the tokenomics or price of research coin itself? Or is this something we have to cut out of the podcast?
So I don't know all the legal things behind this, but I know that it's really sensitive to talk about the value and kind of suggest that the value is going up, because that's not like, well, a speculative project, and that is kind of like betting on securities, and it's not really about this. So I'm not allowed to do that, but I also don't want to do that. I don't want to say, look, this coin is going to go so and so X, because first of all, I don't know what it's going to do. And second of all, this is not what it's about. It's like, if we provide a good product that's going to change how scientists come to a consensus on their science, how they fund their science, how they conduct experiments, how they collaborate, that's valuable. That's what I know. That's valuable in itself. That's enough. And what the token is going to do, I don't know. But I have a trust that if the product is valuable, then the token is valuable. That's sort of kind of a combination of things. And
yeah, supply and demand. The only reason I asked is because when I asked my community a bunch of questions to ask me questions to present to you, they were obsessed with two things. The first thing was, when is a research coin going to get listed on Coinbase? And I was like, guys, he doesn't work for Coinbase. And then the other thing was just questions about Brian Armstrong. Like, does he come into the weekly meetings for you guys, or do you see him involved in the project frequently, or is it just like a in passing type environment for you guys?
So from the listing standpoint, I have no idea, and I don't know, and I don't, even if I knew, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. But since I don't know, it's easy, just like, I don't know. And what I know is that these different exchanges have different criteria for listing, and they will know when it makes sense to list a coin. And I understand the desire for this to be listed on a centralized exchange, because of course it creates more easy access for people who like Uniswap is already one step deeper than a centralized exchange. So it would of course help the project to kind of spread its message and to increase people who could use the product by basically making it easier for them to join and hold the token and use the token on the platform. So I understand the desire for that, but I have no idea what's going on there. And when it comes to how involved Brian is, I think the best way to follow Brian's involvement is if you just follow the the product updates that the team is making. So on Research Hub, every about 2 weeks, they have a product update that basically also features Brian as an author. There you can see how involved he really is. So he's really there with the team, helping them, guiding them, making a lot of the critical decisions in the design choices that the product team is making. So he's really there, involved, shaping Research Hub. And that's basically, that's my perception. I don't see him that often. It's not like Brian works with me on marketing, but he really guides the team that is building the product, and our like core leaders, they interact with Brian, and that's how much I can see. And it's pretty obvious to me that he's pretty involved. What I really like, if you want to see Brian's involvement, I really like his fireside chat that he gave last year. We had a conference, PsyCon 2023. Of course, we're going to do the same conference again, PsyCon 2024 soon. And Brian's fireside chat was really good, like a very fun watch. I think it's only like 25 minutes, but it's really worth watching it. There, Ricardo, one of our leaders, really drills him with some questions, and Brian talks really interestingly about his vision for Research Hub, but also some other questions like, why did Research Hub get funding? Because at first Brian was basically funding it out of his own pocket. And then he involved some investors. And in this decision, he made clear that it was really about bringing in more people onto the table to kind of validate the idea. And I was really impressed with that because I'm a scientist, I'm not a business person. And Brian understands science, but he's more in this world where he has already built a product, where it has already made a successful company. And it was really interesting to see how he thinks and how his thinking is aligned with the scientific mission, while it adds so much more on the practical side that you can see that also when you engage with other scientific products, scientific tools, then you'll find often that the user experience sucks, that their marketing is weird. And I think all of this is kind of really helpful actually to get the intersection of somebody who knows how to build a huge product that actually reaches millions of people and understand the scientific pain points. So yeah, Brian definitely very involved and in a very positive way. I love to see his leadership on this project. Go on, what?
Yeah, I'm excited for SciCon. It's coming up in the next like month or two. I think November, if I'm not mistaken, right? November.
With the 20th of November in San Francisco. I'm also very excited already. It's like less than 2 months and it's going to be epic. Last year it brought so much energy together because when we all pay like on site, like usually we all work on our independent things, moving research forward here or there, and it's a large project, so you can never really see everything at once. But then during SciCon, it's like all the people that work on the project, all the people who are interested in the project on this one day, and the 2 days they pay attention to the same thing, and that brought so much energy in the organization that I felt everybody was really like, everybody was so hyped after SciCon. And then it wasn't short, it was really only shortly after that I noticed, for example, your content, and there was so much more going on. And it seemed to also have kind of, I don't know how this really works, but it seems like when you bring in so much density into one idea, into one thing, then that alone creates like a ripple effect, because now there's content, now there's people talking about it. And yeah, that's why I'm super excited for this, to see this again and see what kind of energy we're going to feel when we have this epic event and we all come together celebrating and sharing what we have achieved and what we're going to do.
Yeah, it's like a little nuke. You condensed all of the thought leaders in one space and then they explode outwards after that. And that's probably got a big reason as to why Brian Armstrong even put Research Hub into his bio to begin with, is because he felt invigorated from the conference. So it'll be cool to see how this year turns out.
Maybe I don't really know if it was this, but I know but like that during this conference, so the main thing really that happens is, on the one, everybody pays attention to the same thing, and we bring in a lot of deep thinkers that connect and talk. I remember like moderating a panel with the founders of BioArchive and another metal scientist and Patrick Joyce. So then in this moment, you can really see how does another leader in this space, like John English, who founded BioArchive, how does he relate with us? How do we do we share similar ideas? And then you see that this is actually the case, and you feel invigorated from that energy from, okay, people who have achieved a lot, they also are aware of us, and we have similar ideas, and we are compatible in thinking. And this kind of happens a lot during these days where you bring in a lot of experts. So it's like outside attention, connection, and internal coherence that really makes for a big, epic moment.
The beautiful symphony. I know a lot of these events lead to different DeSci projects or DeSci companies coming to life and like the ideation of them. So very exciting. It's cool to see it coming up on the roadmap. I do want to ask you if you can give some insight into, or at least your branch in Research Hub, what the future roadmap kind of looks like for the next like 12 months. And then obviously we know like the 5-year vision for Research Hub, but if you could give insight, I'd be appreciated.
I don't know if I can give you a 5-year vision, but I can talk a little bit more short and more from what we have already revealed, because I also know that it's kind of for security law reasons, giving a roadmap is kind of legal. And I also want to stress that in the end, most important is what's coming next. That's like when you talk to like top athletes and you ask them, what are you focused on? They say, well, I'm focused on the next game. And that is exactly how I think how it's supposed to be, how you focus, how you actually get shit done, is if you really focus on that. Of course, you need to have long-term goals, but you need to focus on the next step. And one thing that is really something that we're currently working on is we have this peer review feature, and we started awarding bounties for peer reviews. And we have this great graph that really shows how quick the peer reviews could grow in like a short amount of time, and how quick we get a review done. It's like, I think it's on average is 8.8 days until we get it from a preprint to peer review. So it's like a really fast way to get research debated and discussed and be like, okay, this has been reviewed. Now you can check what other scientists think about this. And what we have, since this has worked so well, we are focusing more effort on this. We are like building out our peer review infrastructure, our peer review marketplace, and make that more accessible, make it easier for the people handling the process, for our editors, for the peer reviewers, and broaden the spectrum of peer reviews that we get into the platform. As I said earlier, we focused on bioarchive, and next up we are bringing in more preprints, try to kind of pull all the preprints that exist into our platform and letting them be reviewed as fast as possible. And as ideally also interest-driven, not every preprint needs a peer review, but those that are odd, those that matter to certain people in certain domains. And so that's something that is definitely coming, where we are focusing in, zoning in on our peer review process. And in my area where it's really about communication, well, I can say that what we're currently focusing on is kind of telling, again, the Research Hub origin story a little bit more, going into originally, Research Hub was started with a blog post from Brian Armstrong, where he just made a post, explained the problems that he saw and how this could be solved with a product that is Research Hub. Like that, he didn't have a name, it was just an idea. So then he found Patrick Joyce, who was working on something like that, and they met up. Patrick reached out to Brian, and they founded the company. And in this post, they kind of targeted 5 problems, that Brian targeted 5 problems. And so now we're kind of reviewing these problems as they exist and how we are currently dealing with them, what we have already done to chop away at these problems. So that's pretty much what we are working on right now. And of course, Cycon is on the horizon. So the main effort for us is really to make sure that we can, create some hype around Cycon, make the people aware that it exists, and also hopefully then share all the content that is in Cycon, so that people can see, okay, like at the end of Cycon, the videos will come out so that people can benefit from the lectures and panels and whatnot we will have there. And that is really the main focus for us. So yeah, then there's some more announcements, but I don't want to really get into them. So you will see them when they come, because sometimes the surprise is the sweetest joy. And yeah.
Damn it. I was hoping we could get some hidden insider info. No, that's cool. I don't think I'd seen that origin story posted anywhere on Research Hub. So that's really cool to see how it created. Do you happen to have that blog post or know where it is so I could see it?
Yeah, it's actually, it should be on our timeline pretty high up, actually, where we publish a blog post, but I can also send you the link if you want.
Yeah, if you don't mind doing that, that would be fantastic.
Of course, I'll do that. Do you want me to do it now or after the call?
You do it after the call. We're gonna wrap it up here. If you have anything for the audience, anything we didn't really touch on, but you're really dying to tell them or communicate to them, it can pertain to literally anything.
Anything. I feel like we have talked almost about everything, but I want to circle back to one thing that we have talked about and just make that a little bit more clear, because I remember when you said we resonated on this point of the Enlightenment. And I want to stress one more time how I think the Western Enlightenment, as we perceive it, we perceive that as really separate from what happens when a master in the East gets enlightened. And we think they start floating. And in the West, they just basically understand some basic things. And what I want to say is that in the West, when we talked about the Enlightenment, it was also about autonomy. So the German philosopher Immanuel Kant said it's about autonomy. So it's about thinking for yourself, self-law governing. That's what autonomy means. Auto, self, and nomos, law. It comes from autonomous, self-law, self-governing. And we got to be self-governing in a democracy, and we got to govern our own lives, and we got to think for ourselves autonomously. And this is why decentralized science makes so much sense, because we're decentralizing the process of thinking and coming to a scientific insight. So it means that it's not one central authority telling you the truth. It's a network of individual thinkers sharing their thinking. And that's what I really wanted to stress again, that basically the Enlightenment, as we understand it in the West, is carried forward from the decentralized science movement. And we saw what happened when the Enlightenment happened once. We got a renaissance, and it was beautiful. So let's continue down that road and see what that will do culturally to our planet. That's really what I wanted to stress one more time. And then,
Hell yeah. Johnathan from Research Hub Foundation, I love it. Thank you for that. I really, again, we resonate a lot on that.
yeah,
I feel like I just cut you off though, so you can finish.
I just wanted to say one more thing about like basic stuff. Like follow us on Twitter, follow the Research Hub account on Twitter, follow the Research Hub Foundation on Twitter, go to Research Hub, join our Discord, and yeah, get involved. Just do something, like talk to us, ask questions, do shit, like make a post on Research Hub, like get on our Discord, build stuff. I want to just see this movement grow and like make it more easy for everybody else to onboard into decentralized science and build a decentralized thinking infrastructure that makes it easy for people to learn about science.
I will put all of the links that you guys need in the description of this video. So if you guys are interested, and we highly encourage you to get involved in some capacity, just go ahead and scroll down. On your way down, if you made it this far into the video, at least hit that thumbs up button as you go to the description of the video. Johnathan, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you joining me.
One more, also thank you to you. Thank you, Patrick, for doing what you do and spreading the word, making people aware that DeSci exists, and yeah, making it interesting for them, making it fun for them. That's what really counts. So yeah, thank you very much for your work and for giving me a stage so I can share my thinking with the world.
Anytime. Hopefully we can have you on again in the not too distant future.